And we are live. What's
Yo,
going on, everyone?
What it do?
What's up, everybody?
It's been a minute, but we're back with the live streams. And today we got a very special guest, our boy Scotty.
Yes, sir. How y'all doing?
How you doing, Scotty?
Doing good. You doing all right?
Yes, sir. I'm good. I'm blessed. I'm glad to be here.
We're definitely glad to have you.
Man, I appreciate y'all for real.
Nah, man. I mean, somebody with as many credits as you is always great to bring on. Man, I was just going through it again. I was like, let me touch on. Let me see. Just to make sure I know. I'm just like, man, he's touching everything.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it, bro. I'm trying.
Why don't you give him some credits? Introduce yourself, Scotty. Multi-platinum, Grammy-nominated engineer.
Yeah, man. So, Scott Taylor Jr. I go by Scotty. Award-winning engineer, multi-platinum. I've worked with people like Money Long, VEDO, Baby Tate, Rae Sremmurd, Young Jeezy, Tamla Man, Isaac Curry, the Baby, Monica, Chris Brown, a lot of people.
So I think we have worked together since you mentioned some artists that I've worked with as well as far as mixing. Like Rae Sremmurd.
Yeah.
Have you done some mixing or recording for them?
Yeah. So I worked on Shrimp Life 2 and 3.
Okay. Yeah, I was definitely on those.
Yeah. Oh, so that's dope. Yeah, I was on. So while we touching on that, let me just say how that even happened. So I know you know Steve Hibicki.
Yeah, Steve. Yep.
So Steve Hibicki, that's my guy, man. That was my mentor for a long time, and I was blessed to meet him as soon as I graduated college. Like 3 months out of college, he gave me a job, and I think not even a year after him knowing me, he threw me in a Rae Sremmurd session. One session turned to 3 months.
Wow.
And in those 3 months, we worked on, you know how it is, how songs carry over to albums.
Yeah.
So we technically worked on Shrimp Life 2 and 3, and then like I was blessed that a song or two carried over to Shrimp Life 3, and both albums ended up doing really well. And that was actually my first couple plaques. That was my first Billboard chart. That was my first gold and platinum plaque and everything. And that I just took that and ran with it. Like when I got that, it was like, because especially because Shrimp Life 1, I feel like they put people on notice, but I think 2 gave them that boost because they have like Black Beatles, like in all these viral songs. And I literally took that and ran with it. And that gave me a lot of opportunities. So that's crazy. We have worked together.
Yeah. So that was pretty much how you got started into like doing music, or because you said you went from college straight to working with Rae Sremmurd.
Yeah, so basically, I just rewind a little bit. So basically, I grew up in the church. So like,
yeah,
I'm just like, I was literally born a musician. Like I played multiple instruments. My whole family sings, so that was just in my blood. But as I was like a kid, I was just trying to figure out what to do with my musical gift. So once I figured out, I was like, you read credits and I think people aim for like producers, writers. I was like, even as a kid, I was like, someone got to be doing something to this record. Like it can't just be them. So when I found out that audio engineering, we pretty much built the record from the ground up, I was like, I want to do that. And I started engineering at 13. And then I actually graduated high school at 17. I was in college at 18. I ended up going to the Art Institute of Atlanta, graduating with my bachelor's in audio production. And I interned at Blue Room Studios. That was great, a great experience. Shout out to everyone there. And actually that's I worked on a few albums there as an intern. The Jeezy album, the Seen It All album, I worked on that album as an intern and ended up getting a gold plaque in a Billboard plaque as an intern. And even that just gave me a whole bunch of opportunities. So like that, and then I met Steve Hibicki through my good friend Backpack, who produced Lit Like Big for Rae Sremmurd on the first album.
Yeah.
He ended up giving him my number, and I'll never forget this. I remember he called me, he was like, yo, because he didn't tell me he was giving him my number. So he was, so Steve Hibicki called me, and I looked up to him. So he called me, was like, yo, this is Steve. I want to chop it up with you. And I was just like, yeah, whatever. And I hung up. And then he called me back. He was like, bro, like, what are you doing? And then he's like, yo, I'm trying to give you a job. And like, literally, like I said earlier, like I put up on him at the studio. He had a studio called Soft Studios on Walker Street at the time. And literally he hired me on the spot, and he had a team called Sauce Team Engineering. And from there, I just went from that studio. I grew from there. I was there for about, I would say 2 years. I was working in and out of Castle Hill, like just freelancing. And then from there, I was with Atlantic for 2 years. And then from Atlantic, I went to, I believe it was Red Zone before Tricky did the partnership with Sony. So it was basically Red Zone / Sony. And then now I'm back to freelancing full time. But yeah. Oh, and I worked at Hot Beats too, the legendary Hot Beats. So yeah, I've been blessed to like work at a lot of, you know, work like under people and just work out of the like the top studios in Atlanta.
Dope, bro. Yeah, it sounds like you've been everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much.
I have a question. Just to pick your brain about it. So you went from, you know, being these in-house engineers at these, you know, these spots, and then actually working for a record label. So working for Atlantic Records. You're on staff or on salary or you know, however it worked. What's the difference in like freelancing or working at a studio versus actually working for a record label as an engineer?
Yeah, so the difference is, it's a few differences. I say the main difference is like a consistent check. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, money is not everything, but consistency is great. So it's like with working with Atlantic at the time, like, you know, especially once you like prove yourself and people start requesting you, like you get a guaranteed, you get guaranteed hours, and you get to work with either established artists or artists that just got signed or that's about to get signed. So you get first dibs on like all the artists. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like it's more placements, more opportunities. And I even with that, I've worked with a lot of people just doing that. And with freelancing, it's great because, you know, you obviously get to name your own price. You know, you get to move how you want to, and you get to see the city and see the world. You know, like I've traveled the world with just not even signing to people, just doing good work, and just, you know, they pay your rate, you know, and everything, and then you send your invoice, and that's it. So like that's pretty much the invoice. I mean, that's pretty much like the difference, I guess, is just like access and freedom. You know what I'm saying?
That's cool. Because I don't know if I've known a lot of people that were like contracted by a label, you know. I just know a lot of freelancers or you know, or sometimes studios will be affiliated, like you said, with Sony or another studio, so they're dealing with a lot of those clients, but actually being like, you know, a W-2 with them. That's cool. I mean, and I'm sure it does give you a lot of opportunities too, because you get to see how the machine works behind them, you know. Just seeing like how they work with deadlines, how they're doing like pushes for marketing and everything like that. Man, I'm sure it's definitely helped you out once you jump back on the freelance side of it.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely an experience, and honestly, I encourage all engineers to do it at least once. You know, it's good to be an entrepreneur, have your own business, and like freelance, but it's like you said, to see how a machine works, and like to see an artist have a big budget or a low budget, or like, you know, you're working with so many producers and so many writers, and if you do a good job, they get your number, they give you work, and it's just like literally a big old like a cycle of just network. And you just got to make the best out of it. Like, you know, with me going to Atlantic, I knew I was going to be there forever. Even the studio manager at the time, she was like, she knew it. She was like, shouts out to Joy too. She did a lot for my career. She was like, man, I know you're not going to be here forever, but while you're here, just give me your all. And I was like, for sure. And I met so many people working at Atlantic in general. I met so many people who I still work with to this day, who honestly, like a lot of my credits that set up today, I've met through people at Atlantic.
Oh, very cool. I mean, I guess that speaks volumes to like your work ethic and your ability, you know, because just as easily as they recommend you for these projects, they could be like, yeah, don't put me in the room with that guy again, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really dope. What do you think it is that separates you, you know, from the other engineers? Why did they keep coming back to you?
I think it's definitely my work ethic, and what I mean by that is like I'm literally I usually get to the studio an hour or hour 30 minutes before everybody, and I just clean it. I set the vibe. I usually get my candle. You know, I make sure it's really, because you're going to be in the studio for a long time. So I just make sure it's smelling good. Obviously I do the mic check and all that, but you know, that doesn't take long. And I like to troubleshoot, and then I just like to, you know, sometimes I sit there, I meditate, and I just take over my whole energy in the room, because, you know, I want when the artist walks in, I just want them to feel peaceful. The artist may have had a long day, you know, they're still human at the end of the day, and then they got the, you know, sometimes they have to come to work, and you never know what you're going to get depending on who you're dealing with. Or the artist may be in a good mood, and then it may be their entourage. So it's like, I think that, and then just my consistency, man. Like, I'm always the first one there, and I'm literally the last one to leave. And I know I can work long hours. Like, you know, like, I love working. I've worked 18, 20-hour sessions so many times, and wide awake. And if I need some energy, I'll drink some coffee. But I just love working. You know, I love working. And I think also, just like my personality, you know, you can be a good engineer, but if people can't be in a room with you for 18 hours, or just let alone 4, let's not even jump to 18, let alone 4. Mm-hmm. If they feel like they can just be with you, it's over with, because, you know, you're everything to an artist. You know, they end up telling you their personal business, and may even tell you their record label situation or whatever. So it's like, if you can just vibe and be a good energy in the room, besides like obviously making it sound good, man, you'll last forever in this business.
Yeah, that's great advice, man. Just actually being able to sit in a room with somebody. You know, people want to work with the people they want to be around.
Yeah. I found that out. I found that out early on. You know, like just like, you know, just because I observe a lot. So sometimes I'll be in sessions and be like real quiet and just kind of peep game. And then, like, even being up under my mentor, he had me sit up in his sessions, and I would peep game to see how everything works. And I'm just like, okay, cool. It's the studio is literally a vibe. Like, you know, it's you don't even have to be the best. Like, it's just like, you can eventually, because you're eventually going to get great, but it's like, yo, if you can just be a vibe and just sit in a room, eventually, you know, everyone's going to catch on to whether if you're funny or whether if you're, you know, good at what you do or whatever, because, you know, your energy will speak volumes before your talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think that happened with you early on, that you were just able to capture the vibe so much that, not saying that your skill set wasn't there, but it gave you time to stay in the room with those people while you developed that more?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I just, even to this day, I just take pride in being a good person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, you know, I just want to be a good person, because I feel like in this music business, you don't meet a lot of good people, you know. So the few good people you do meet, you like put them in the chokehold, because you're like, wow, you're rare, you're not going anywhere. So like me, I would just like, even when I used to sit in sessions as an intern, and even when I got like hired and was like working sessions and got the chance to still sit in sessions, I would just peep game and just be like, okay, what is missing? This engineer may have talked too much. This engineer may have been too slow. This engineer may have been good at what they did, but their personality is bad. So I would literally have a notebook, and I still have to this day somewhere. I would literally have a notebook, and I would take notes, what to do, what not to do. And I have I have a lot of these basically, and I would literally take notes and be like, I won't be doing that. I'll be doing that. And like one day my mentor was like, what are you doing? And I was literally writing down like pros, cons, like, or like what to do, what not to do. And I literally studied. I would take that, take it home and study it, and then apply it to my sessions when it was my turn.
So is that just strictly kind of like a broad notebook, so like everybody you came across, or was it ever like, okay, if I'm ever in a session with, you know, a big artist, just say if I'm ever in the session with Chris Brown or something like this, don't do this, or like maybe something that you sat in on and you're like, this artist doesn't like this specifically, or is it more like just avoid this altogether?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both, because I got put in the fire because like I would work with major artists when I was interning, but you was an intern and I was assisting. But when I actually started recording, some of those things that I tried to apply, it was different because I was actually sitting in the seat. So then I would just go back and edit it, and just I would like put stars beside it and put when recording do this, like when assisting, because it was totally different. Because it's all good when you're, you're sitting on the side watching, but when you're in a chair, I was like, dang, even though I felt like I had the blueprint, I was like, it's totally different. But it still helped though.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's super cool.
Yeah, man.
So Scotty, so I've went through your Instagram. I kind of saw, was trying to peeping out what you've been working on. And one of the posts I saw, you were just like vibing out with Money Long.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's all about the vibe and making her feel comfortable and everything. So when what records were you guys working on at the time, and which ones did you work on?
So in that video, that was actually that was I Miss You.
Okay.
And that was on PDA. I think it was on the EP and the album.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, she's cool. She obviously I asked like, hey, can I record? So basically on my phone, which I'll probably put together one day, but I pretty much documented like the whole 2.5 years that we worked together. So it's like I have, and I would ask her, like, I'm talking about sometimes she'll come, you see the videos, he's bandanaed up, Letterman jacket, just cooling, and we dancing, we talking, and I have pictures, videos, and we was just vibing, working on the album, and pretty much man, I did pretty much everything, but I think literally everything but Hours and Hours, Pain, and maybe like 2 more, but other than that, everything you see a release, I've been blessed to work on. And what's crazy is we have so many records that are not out, and I'm sure y'all can relate too, but like it's a lot of records. You know what I'm saying? Like it's literally, I had to get a whole nother hard drive for her, because it was just like, remember, she a lot of people don't know, and some people do know, like that her Money Long is Priscilla Renee, so she's a writer first, you know what I'm saying? Like, so she writes like a writer, and that, what I mean by that is like we be pumping out records, you know what I'm saying? So but digressing back to your question, that we was actually working on the EP in that video.
Okay.
And then some of those songs carried on to the album. And yeah, that was out in LA.
And leading into my next question, what is her vocal chain, bro? Because she sounds smooth.
Yeah. So her vocal chain, it's crazy. A lot of people ask me this.
What are you doing? Is it in the box? You run it through some magic, some leaves, tube tech?
So I tell you, so before I go all the way in depth with it, we tested out many vocal chains. So when we first linked up, I actually met her in Atlanta. I met her at Red Zone, which is now Sony. So at Tricky Stewart spot. So I met her there, and then we tried the Sony C800, and we did the classic chain, Neve, the classic Neve 1073, the old vintage one, the CL1B, and then the Sony C800. Me personally, I didn't like that on her voice, and people thought I was crazy, like, from her husband to the team, because it sounded good, and I'm just like, man, it can sound better. So we tested the Manly. I forgot the technical name of it, but it's a Manly. It's like red and black.
Reference cardioid.
I think so. But
reference.
It was too bright. Like it was too bright, and I didn't like that one. So then we tested U87. That lasted like maybe an hour. I just hated. I hated that on her voice.
It ain't Drake rap vocal, so it ain't working.
Yeah, I was like, man, it's not working. It was too much mids. And yeah, it was just a lot. And then to answer your question, the final vocal chain of like what y'all hear today is still the Neve 1073, the CL1B, and then we switched to the Telefunken 251. And when we went to that one, man, it's like a lot of records that y'all hear today came out. You know what I'm saying? Because in some records we had to go and recut. But I'm a big gear guy. I like going through the board, and even if you go through the board and bypass the compressors and EQs, going through the board gives you an advantage because it's analog,
Mhm.
and only we're going to hear it, but it still gives you that slight advantage over everybody who's just going Neve 1073 CL1B and probably not going to the board and just patching it straight to, obviously the microphone.
Yeah.
And I forgot the intern's name, but we was in LA one time and he did it, and I was just like, man, it sounds different. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm actually going. So he's basically going through the board on a channel, and he's basically like just bypassing like the compression on. It was an SSL, but I forgot which SSL was. But he was just basically bypassing, the compression EQ. But it's like a super slight difference that only us will hear. But I loved it, and so yeah, that's the vocal chain that everyone loves.
So when it's running through the SSL channel, do you have the dynamics and the EQ engaged?
No,
and
I
processing on it.
Yeah, it's just going through it for field.
Okay,
and then I have that patched to the Neve 1073, the vintage one, and then the CL1B.
Dope.
Yep.
So when
that's just like the secret sauce, huh?
Yeah, man. Yeah, and we can go into settings too. I don't mind like going into settings. Like we can go into all that. Like,
yeah, bro, give us that compressor setting, man. That's what everybody wants.
So what I usually leave the my EQ settings are pretty easy, are pretty simple. So on the Neve, I just have it I have all the EQs bypass, like on off. I have the roll off bypass. I do that in the box, and I always have the input on 40. The reason I have the input on 40, I love that like vintage like crush that it gives it when you like put it on 40. And I tested this out. This is how I know. I tried it on 30. I tried it on 35. I put it on 40. As far as the compressor settings, it's two things that I do, right? So my main one is so you know how fast is all the way at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
Like I put it about right here. So it's like maybe 3, if you just turn it 3 notches above fast, and I do the same thing on the attack and the release. So they're both, it's going to move a fast signal, right? So because I want to hear the vocal, what it sounds like with compression instantly.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I usually put it on manual. And then the input obviously varies upon the vocal. And then I try to make sure, to me, my sweet spot on the CL1B is between 3 and 5. And sometimes, honestly, I let it go to 7, and people's like, man, that's crazy. Try it.
I mean, the CL1B, it definitely, you can hear that much compression on it. It's not super transparent at 3 or 5, especially at 7. So that's interesting. I always get worried about not being able to take it back.
Man, but here's the thing. Let's just say if you print with, I mean, I try to stay at 5, but if it feels good at 7, I'll be like, okay, cool, we can do 7. But like, if it feels good, I just leave it. And here's the thing, man. You already got a compressed vocal. That's less that the mix engineer has to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? As long as it's not over compressed and distorted, you're honestly good. And that's the way I look at it. And I haven't got any complaints. If anything, I've got like compliments, whether it's been like, you, Pearl, from stuff you got from me, or like
I think I hit you up when I was getting sessions from you. I was like, bro, what are you tracking through? What are you doing? Because it sounded good. It sounded as good as anything I've ever gotten. So it's quality equipment, but also understanding like where those sweet spots are, like how you like to saturate the transformer on the Neve, and I've never been like, oh man, this is way over compressed. So whatever you're doing is working for sure.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And that honestly, that just came from like me testing it out. Like I learned a lot from school. I learned a lot from my mentors. I learned a lot from just working. But like, I think how you become successful is also just being fearless. Like, like just not trying to always go by the book, go by the rules. It's just like, yo, try it. Why not do so? Because 7 is not going to work on every record, but it's been records where we've hit on 7, like where it's just like the meaning like the highest peak is 7 and it feels good. You know what I'm saying? But some records, it may be 3, some it's 5, but usually between 3 to 5, that's like the sweet spot for me. And it just sounds the best.
And I think also understanding how to tweak the attack and release properly too. So like if it needs a little bit more, if it's too fast, it might pump too much. If it's too slow, it might grab too much. So, you know, I'm sure even though you kind of have like this basic setting, like you are still going in and making adjustments depending on the song and stuff.
Yeah. So that's actually great. So it depends on the song. It depends on the artist. You know, some artists, they sing low or they rap low. Some artists, they sing really loud. So I usually try to keep my settings the same as far as the attack and release, and then just mess with the threshold and kind of just maybe tell the artist, hey, take a half a step back on this take. You may want to pull back and come back in. Like, it's just little strategies that just kind of help me stay in that sweet spot or find a sweet spot, because it doesn't take long. After like maybe like 3 or 4 takes, I got the artist, unless they just start yelling or singing and rapping different.
Right.
After a few takes, I usually got it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because I know she can, like, you know, hit some notes for sure. And I was like, because I haven't tracked in like a long time. I don't remember the last time I recorded somebody. But are you like riding like the threshold, or what are you doing when, you know, she's getting into those higher like vocals?
Okay, so it's 2 things that I'm doing. So usually when I'm recording, because the gear is usually like on my right or on my left, like I just kind of peep at the threshold. You can hear it because your ear eventually gets trained. You know, like Pearl was saying earlier, like you hear it and you're like, okay, cool, it may be compressing too much, or like to me, I can hear like when I'm doing too much. But I usually peek at the threshold, and if I feel like she's going too much over, I usually say, like, if she gets real loud on the big notes, I tell her to pull back on the big note and then come back into the microphone when she's done, and it gives it like a great sound. Like, for example, on Butterfly Effect, on the song that was on the last album, the PDA album, Deluxe, I believe, it's a lot of big notes he hit, like, and we just did a lot of those techniques. And sometimes when she hits the big notes, while she steps back and belches, I'll literally turn the threshold down and then go back up. And that's just a trick I learned just being in the room, you know. But I make sure I just go back to my spot once I do that. And, you know, just a basic trick, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I'm sure it's all about capturing that magic too. Like, you don't ever want to be the reason why they have to do the takeover when it was like perfect.
Yeah, I've been there early in my career, and I told myself, oh, this will never happen again. Oh my gosh. I remember one time I was who was it? This was like, man, 2015. I was recording some rapper. I forgot his name, but some rapper. He just did this freestyle. He pretty much freestyled the whole song, and I was moving so fast. I had pressed record, but I had deleted the tape. And he was like, man, let me hear that back. And like, he could see me through the booth, and I just gave him this look of defeat. And he was like, he was cool about it, but he was like, hey, little bro, like, next time, say that. Like, he was like, every take I do, save it. Never happen again. Like, I've had little hiccups here and there, but that delete it, nah. Not me.
Did you actually hit that command period quick key?
Dog, man, I'm talking about everything. I playlist. If you cough, I'm saving it.
Yeah.
That's good, man. I think that's really good for anybody, you know, any engineers that are in here listening too. Like, we're never going to be perfect, you know. And you brought up something earlier. You were like, what not to do. And I think that's like a philosophy that I have in life. And it's really cool to hear you say it, because it's like, every situation is different. That's why there's never an answer. It's like, oh, this is how you record vocals. This is how you make this, because everything's different. But what we can figure out is what not to do. And you kind of have to fail and kind of have to be in those situations where, like, okay, I messed up. I'm never going to do that again. You know, not only because you might lose, but just how it makes you feel and how it makes you look in front of, you know, the artist and all that stuff. So it's good that you did have that learning experience, but it also didn't end your career.
Yeah, and I have plenty of stories. Like, I remember recently, I guess I'll tell another one. I remember recently I was in Miami working with London on Track, and we were just working on a lot of stuff, man. Just he had like different artists, different writers, different producers come in, right? And I guess I can say he was in the booth. Beam, super talented songwriter and artist. He writes for other people as well. Like, and so in my template, I have like two tracks. Like, I usually have like the demo, then the 2-track. So he wanted him to keep doing some ad libs. and he like pasted it, but he pasted the wrong one. and then he was like, hey, so when he got finished with the ad-libs, it was like silence. He was like, oh snap, I wanted it to keep going. And then it was just one of those things where I was just like, okay. And this was recently, this was last year. I was like, okay, what can I do? And I just was like, hey bro, like, do you mind going in the booth and like doing some more ad-libs? And luckily he was just like, it was such a vibe. He was like, man, cool, I got you. And then he just did the ad-libs. But it was just one of those things where like he was just looking at the wrong thing probably, and then he pasted it. And it was one of those things I could have said something, but I'm just like, okay, cool. How can I maintain the vibe? You know what I'm saying? Like I could have easily said, London, you pasted the wrong thing. But instead I'm just like, yo, bro, do you mind doing this? And the worst thing they can say is no, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? So even if you mess up, man, I encourage engineers to like think fast and think how to recover and keep the vibe.
Yeah, that's great advice. I was curious how much. So I don't want to put you in a box, but it feels like that your lane right now is the hands-on engineer in a session. Like you're working with producers, you're working with the artists, songwriters, essentially, and which, in my opinion, almost has a more important role than the mixer, because nowadays what's happening is mixers are getting sessions from artists, and it's like it's got to sound like the demo. It's like, make it sound exactly like this, but better, but exactly like this, but better, but exactly like this. So it's really you or these really hands-on studio engineers that are creating the vibe, creating, you know, the sound of these records, sometimes even more than the mixers are. Would you consider yourself like a tracking engineer, or are you trying to shift over into the mixing side of it more? Or how much mixing are you doing in session?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. So I actually do consider myself 100%. I am a tracking engineer. I'm also I would say I'm a mixing engineer too. The only reason I would also throw in I'm transitioning into that is because I do a lot of recording. But my recording style is I really have a basic template, but I basically mix as I go. You know, like I have a template. It's really simple, but it's effective. And I usually try to do as much as I can in the session, from delay throws to effects on the ad-libs to you know, obviously like making sure I have a good recorded vocal. So by the time mixers like you get it, y'all honestly can just put y'all sauce on it and probably remove plugins. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to give y'all those vocals that are so good, to the point where you don't have to do as much work. And I try to throw as much sauce and everything on there. Like one of many things my mentor taught me was, do not hold back, man. It's no plugin, it's no template that we haven't seen. You know, we all have each other's stuff. Whether you know, we all have different ways of doing it, but it's all the same, man. And I've seen him, you know, because Steve Hibicki and did a lot of work with Jason Joshua. I've seen him give stuff to him with just all his sauce on it, and hold nothing back. And it motivated me because I'm just like, I feel like some people are like in competition, and Steve just motivated me to just like, dog, like, be you and go 100% all the time. Because sometimes even when you do that, sometimes the artist may have you mix the record. You know, they may say, you know what, I'm gonna get.
That's very true.
Yeah, they may say, yo, let me get the stems over to you. If you're blessed to get the stems, and they say, you know what, just go ahead and mix this, leave my vocals exactly how you had it. And I've also been in situations where the artists have been so used to my sauce or how they heard it to where I print the vocals and I just send over the vocal stems to the mixer, and then obviously the mixer will tweak it from there. But they don't want nothing changed from their ad libs to this, so I just print it and just send it over. And I've been in situations where I've done that, you know, and depending on what it is, you'll get a mixing credit because that's mixing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
100%.
Yeah, bro. I just try to. I still live by that, man. I don't hold back. I don't care who I'm giving it to. I'll be blessed, man. And then sometimes even like you, I get, that's pretty much how we met. Like you'll call me, be like, "What are you doing?" And then that's how you build relationships with engineers. You know, we show each other stuff. We give each other plugins. We give each other, you know, sauce. We give each other, you know, just advice. And you know, I feel like you'll make it further if you just don't hold back and just go y'all and mix as you go while you're recording, opposed to just record and drop the vocal.
Yeah, it's like kind of like the cream rises to the top. You know, you're not if you're good at what you do, nobody's gonna really be able to copy it. You know, they maybe can get lucky once, but you know, what you have is special, and you know, so it doesn't matter if you tell people or share, because they're never gonna do it like you.
Yeah, and I had to learn that as well. And along with, you could have my template. Like I know, Mad, like you sell templates and everything, but they don't have your ears.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have your setup. They don't have none of that. They don't have your credits. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter. Like, essentially, like you could give them all your tools, and that's great that, you know, all of us are doing that. I know I've learned so much from Pearl over the last couple of years, you know, from conversations on the phone to, you know, whatever. And it's like, you know, like you said, Pearl just straight up called me and asked me like, yo, what are you doing to these vocals? What is your change? And I told him, like, it was not like, oh, it's a secret. I was like, oh yeah, bro, I'm using this. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And it's like, yo, you never know where even conversations like that will lead you. He may get a call one day and be like, yo, I need a good R&B engineer, and he may think of me. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. I may get mixing no matter what genre, and I'm like, yo, you need to go to Pearl, or you need to go to Mad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things where, like, I just encourage engineers, don't hold back. Don't think you got all the sauce and all the secrets, because you don't.
Man, I appreciate guys like you know, that send all the sauce over, because it makes my job so much easier. And I pull up the session, I'm like, man, this sounds great.
Serious.
It's like I just got to do a little bit of this, and bam, we're done.
Yeah.
So we got a question here. I'm gonna pull it up for you, Scott. So for people who don't have analog gear and they have to rely on plugins, is it worth it recording the effects to get it close as possible to the final product?
Yes. It also depends on the artist. So I'll just give you an example. If you don't have analog gear, you can always record with EQ, compression, reverb, echo, everything. Depending the artist or songwriter you're recording, they like to hear everything in real time. Me personally, I always try to give, like, while they're recording, obviously I'm going through, you know, like the Neve and the CL1B. I just give them a simple roll-off EQ at like 80 hertz. I may rise it depending on the artist. A reverb just to give the vocal a little wetness and push it back some, and then that's it. You know what I'm saying? But it depends on the artist. Sometimes you can record with the echo. Sometimes artists like to hear that. Sometimes they need to hear a slap delay. Sometimes they need to hear big reverb. It just all depends. So also when doing that, when not using analog gear and just like having as many effects on as possible, you can get closer to the final product, because once you drop the vocal from that recording, you know, you're playing back what they already recorded, like what they heard. Yeah. You know, it can give them a better idea of what they're supposed to be hearing when the song is done.
Oh, yeah, I had a second part of that question too, and it said, with doing that, how do you prevent it from becoming CPU intensive?
Okay, so I just give you an example of how I do it with my template. So I have a record track. On the record track, usually if it's a singer, I usually have Autotune. I usually have a simple roll-off EQ, and I have all the effects on as a send, so it won't like take up a lot of processing power. So basically, I'll set up some buses, and I have my reverb on it and my delays on it, and then I do it as a send. And then usually I have no trouble, because the only two plugins I have on the record track is the Autotune and the EQ.
So you're essentially, say if you were to put a chain into like on that, so say you did the outboard gear and you put a compressor on there or whatever, you would move the same settings down to your auxiliary track, so that when you're playing it back, you know, just for tracking purposes, right? So we haven't really touched the mix yet, but so when they're hearing it back, it sounds the same when they're monitoring their vocal takes.
Yep, absolutely. So basically, even with the EQ, it's usually the same exact EQ that they're going to hear when I drop the vocal. It's the same exact verb. It's the same exact echo, if I do use echo, that's on the record track to the actual like lead track on the vocal. It's the same exact settings.
Yeah. And then I guess just I think what you said was clear, but just to kind of like reiterate, the reason why it's staying CPU, not CPU intensive, is because you're choosing to have that one auxiliary track. Everything's going to that one auxiliary track with the processing, as opposed to if you had 4 or 5 vocal tracks putting the same chain 4 or 5 times, right? So everything's just feeding that auxiliary track.
Yep. And it's also yes, and it's also for speed purposes. So usually what I do is like I have everything separate. For example, I may have a verse aux, a hook aux, a background aux, an ad-lib aux. What I usually try to do for speed purposes, all the verse auxes, I have audio tracks routed to the verse auxes. I just keep dragging them down. And when the artist gets out the booth, then I start like moving stuff. But I just drag and drop just to keep it going. And usually, man, people be talking, they smoke, they drink, they vibe. That's when you can kind of rearrange and get all technical.
Right. So, and I think that's a really good point, that for anybody that's in the studio environment, you know, it's the way I always looked at it was I never wanted to hold up a session. So if I was to try thing like beat drop or a delay throw or anything like that, I had to make sure that I didn't even know I was doing it. Like it was quick. Or like you said, you're doing some quick balancing. You're not going in and doing like an extensive mix and stopping their flow. You're kind of wanting them to get the whole footage down, right? So like everything that they want to do, you're doing that first and then going back and tweaking later.
Yep. And honestly, depending on the artist, you can do it. Like sometimes if you're in a session with me, you're probably going to hear me say this a million times. I'm going to just press the talk back button. I'm going to say, hey, 2 seconds. And then sometimes I have to get an idea out. And sometimes depending on who it is, I just like make a mental note and do it later. But as of lately, I've been working with a lot of patient artists and patient creatives.
Do you think that has to do with them trusting you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have to earn trust. Like, you know, so after so many sessions, people know what you're doing and they really understand what 2 seconds means. They're going to be like, oh, Scotty has an idea. Let me just sit here and wait. You know, but sometimes with the vibe, I just keep it going. And sometimes another trick I do while they're recording, I just pay attention and I may already have my delays set up and I just sneak in the throw that I meant to do earlier. And I just keep it pushing. And by the time it plays back, they got an 1/8 note delay just going in their ear. And they're like, oh, that's hard. And that's kind of how you can like show out, but still get your ideas out at the same time, you know?
Yeah. That's good advice, man. It's really good advice.
Appreciate it.
Also, if anybody else in here does have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat.
We'll
I got a million questions, so I can keep asking.
For sure.
I did see that on Instagram it said that you were also a vocal producer,
yes.
Which I think becomes inevitable the longer that we stay in here. And even I think sometimes the word producer is thrown around too much with beat makers and things like that. But how much would you consider yourself actually doing vocal production with these artists now? Is it like on a client-to-client basis, or are you kind of like, hey, I think this would sound really good if we did, you know, lead up the middle and 2 stacks, or if we did 4 stacks pan, you know, left and right? You know, how often are you doing vocal production in your engineering sessions, if at all?
So now everybody, I've just got to this point. So basically probably about 80% of the people that I record, I'm vocal producing. And I had to work my way up to that point. I've always been a vocal producer, and I've naturally did it. But I had to come to a point where I'm like, yo, I need to not only get credited and paid for this, but I need to start telling people I vocal produce. And so now I make it very clear, like, hey, if you want me to record, I have to vocal produce as well, because that's just the service that I offer. That's just you know, a slight advantage I have over other engineers. I can vocal produce, I can sing, so I can like not only sing it to the artist or just tell them how to do it, and I can record you. So it's like, you know, I've been doing that for a long time and just kind of just going with the flow. And then I was like, yo, I need to start taking this serious. You know, like I vocal produce. I'm pretty sure you have as well. Like I vocal produce rappers,
all the time. Yeah.
Like rappers, singers. It doesn't matter. And now that's like officially a service that I offer. And sometimes there's been times I've come in a session just strictly as a vocal producer, but I try to just keep it as like if I'm recording and vocal producing you at the same time.
Well, you're smarter than me, man. I've been giving away for free all these years.
Bro,
I've been trying to make it easier on myself.
Yeah, it's honestly like it can get hard because I feel like we're always gonna bless somebody with some type of product for free at the end of the day. You know, we're always going to give them a free master, a free mix, a free vocal production session, you know, but eventually, man, you're going to start tagging for that, man, and at least getting credited, you know, because it's, you know, like I said, we vocal produce rappers, you know, like, hey, say this line with a little more grunge. Hey, stack that. Do some ad-libs on this part. That's vocal production. So, like, it's not always like, hey, you need to rap it like this. It's just like, if you tell someone to redo it and do it this way or shift the way their vocals being used, that's vocal production.
So we got another question here. But before we get to this question, you've been getting a lot of love in the chat.
Man, everybody loves you, brother.
I'm just gonna pull these up for you.
I appreciate it.
Let you go through and read them.
Yeah, that's my big sister right there.
Scott.
That's my other big sister. Love y'all. Thank y'all for watching. That's my dad. That's my girlfriend.
Man, but you know, it's awesome to have that kind of support too.
Yeah, it is, bro. Like my family and my girls, like that's my other big sister. I got 3 big sisters. Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, they're my family and my girlfriend, my biggest support system. That's my nephew.
Here's a good question. What would be your advice for someone who didn't go to college and they want to be an audio engineer? How would they jumpstart their career?
Man, go to your nearest studio and intern. Humble yourself down and just do whatever you need to do to go to the next level. I didn't intern long because the studio just recognized my gifts and was like, you need to be doing something else. But I definitely appreciate every minute, every second that I intern. Also, I encourage you engineers, get you some booklets. Take notes. I can't even pull up all the ones that I have. I have so many of these from over the years. Get you some booklets, some composition books. They're only, I think, $1.03 at the near dollar store. Take notes. I still go back and look at these things, man. Get you some of these and just take notes on any and everything you can, everything you learn. YouTube is great. I know that sounds crazy, but like YouTube is great. Network with fellow engineers. For example, how I met Black Pearl was I looked up who mixed the Baby records, and I seen your name. I searched it on Instagram. I found his Instagram. I DM'd him, and I was like, "Yo, bro, like you're dope. I love that record sound." That's how we met, you know. And it's just a simple, just doing your research. You know what I'm saying? Like I just love how they sound, and I was like, "Who's mixing this stuff?" And I found them. Yeah, and don't be afraid to search for a mentor. I've had plenty of mentors in my career. I still have some to this day, and no matter how successful you think you're going to be, or you are going to be, find an internship and find a mentor, and just humble yourself down and make yourself always able to learn. You know, never stop learning from anybody, from someone younger than you, older than you, more successful than you, richer than you, whatever. Just make sure you always have like a teachable spirit so you can learn and just grow.
I think that's great advice. And do you think that people really need to go to audio engineering school to be successful in this industry?
I'm 50-50 with that. So I did, and college changed my life. You know, I was a young 17-year-old kid. You know, I needed 4 years to grow. You know, not only as a man but as a engineer. I know successful people that has went to school and that hasn't went to school. I say, to answer your question, I say this, man, if you have the money and the resources, please go, because you can learn a lot, like I said, as a man and as a creative. If you don't have the money and the resources, that's fine. Like I said, take the money you do have, use it for gas to go to your internship, go to YouTube, message people on Instagram, go to these, you can subscribe to so many websites that offers, y'all offer stuff. You can do that. Like it's you don't stop learning. Learning doesn't start in school. Learning starts within, and how much you want to apply yourself. I was in college at 18, but from 13 to 18, I had to do my own research. I had to do the grind, and I had to grind and just figure out, what I want to do. What's my strong, what am I good at? What am I bad at? What can I improve on? So it's like, it's so many ways you can approach it.
We got another question right here.
For sure.
When working with artists, how do you help them achieve their full creative potential?
So that's a good question. So I always try to set the vibe. I always try to get there early, clean everything, get it smelling good. And I try to just help the record. Like I try to make the best record possible. Whether if it's vocal producing, having their favorite snacks in the studio, having their favorite water, just really paying attention. Like a lot of this is not being the greatest, not being the fastest. It's just good energy and just paying attention, man. If you pay attention, you'll notice that, hey, this artist likes M&Ms. They like water. They don't like alcohol. They don't like smoking in the room. They like the lights dim. They like to record from 4 to 4 and eat at 7. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just got to really be paying attention to the simple things that a lot of people really don't pay attention to. That's going to help you stand out.
Facts.
It's funny how often you mention smell. That's a big thing for you?
Huge, bro. Like, I love smelling good myself, and I just love the room smelling good. And the reason why is, that was how I was raised, but it's like, you got to think, if we're in the studio for like an average session I do is like, the lowest is 4 hours and most is about, I don't know, like 16, 18 hours.
Wow.
Bro, that's a long time, bro.
Yeah.
And you think I'm going to be in the room and not only myself smelling good, but the room not smelling good? Dog, I bring room spray, I bring candles, I bring everything because, unfortunately in this business, you're not going to you're going to meet people who don't smell good, or, it's just
that studio smells the worst.
So
when they have bad hygiene, oof.
Bro, I haven't, by the grace of God, I haven't ran into too many of those situations, but this is why I am the way I am, because,
it just fills the studio up. There's like not windows and air's not moving. And it's,
you feel me? So it's like, I literally have like a whole cleaning kit in my book bag that I keep with me just in case, because it's just like, if we're sitting there for a long amount of time, I want to smell good, dog. I want to, not only for myself, like we're in each other's air for a long time. Like, can we smell good? Can we vibe? Can we enjoy this space that we have for 12 hours? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's good advice.
So I want to ask a question. So back to like when you're after you record vocals like with Muni and you run it through the compressor and the Neve and the SSL, when you're coming back into the box, are you guys sitting there mixing the record together? Like, are you making mixed decisions on your own? Like when she goes take a break or something, or is it kind of like how you're recording? You have your like presets and stuff ready to go.
Yeah. So with her, I have a template just for her. So like over the years, I have like her ad lib chain, her background chain, everything. And honestly, it's just drag and drop, and I tweak as I go. And she trusts me. Like, it's not like she says, "Hey, do this, do that." The most thing she says, or the thing she says the most, is like, she'll just be like, "Stack, okay, shift that, okay, let's get it." Like, but it's a lot of like, because I've proved myself over the years. I've been recording her for almost 3 years now.
Oh wow.
So it's like, we really barely, we talk outside of the booth, but while she's recording, man, we're just on go. And she, even if you listen to her project, you'll see a lot of the familiar big ad lib, like the big reverb radio ad libs, like that's all me. And you know, just her sound of the silky smooth vocals. Like I've built that sound, and she's trusted me over the years to the point where she's just like, yeah, just let Scotty do him.
That's good, man. Props to you, because that's a hard thing to get to. Because I'm sure, you know, with any artist, this is their baby, this is their livelihood, and just to willingly hand that off to someone without even questioning it that means just you put a lot of work into developing, you know, those relationships.
Yeah, so, you're pretty much her sound.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, and I'm honestly that with a few people, like with honestly the people you have named, with Muni, with VEDO, with Tate. And I have some other artists that I'm working with, some indie artists and some upcoming artists that I've been helped develop her sound. Even with Tate, I've been working with Tate for 3 years, you know, like, so we've built a sound on the rap side and we built the sound on the singing side, you know, and it just took work, you know, just countless hours, just recording. I've tweaked their template so many times, you know what I'm saying? Like, just over and over and over. Same with VEDO. I've been working with VEDO since, I don't know, what, 2016 maybe? When he was just writing. I remember I met him at Atlantic and he was just writing, and he was writing big songs, you know, for Chris Brown and overseas and everything. And then when he started taking his artist seriously, and he started to do a lot of work, I've been blessed to, you know, to be part of a lot of his career as well. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, my niche has always been like, I want to help, you know, break an artist, like, and I've been blessed to help break or be a part of multiple artist careers who has catapulted, whether if I'm still working with them or not. And that's just like, it feels good because eventually over time you figure out that it's you, you know. They still do have that star effect, everyone that I named. Even from the baby, like me and Pearl did a record called 21, and before he released Suge, that was like his main sound, like the big flanger, reverb, ad-libs. Rappers weren't doing that. You know what I'm saying? Rappers were not doing that, and he trusted me, and he was great to work with, and he was fearless, you know, because rappers, like I said, rappers at the time was not doing big reverb, flange, ad-libs, over compressed in the background. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, they weren't doing that. And then, you know, I gave it to Pearl. He just polished it up so good. I was like, oh, I got to find this guy. So, you know, it's just one of those things where, like, be fearless and don't be scared to create a sound. The worst thing an artist can say is no.
That's good advice. And then, you know, I heard Dave Pensado say it one time, and he's like, it's better to sound new than it is to sound good a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, like, I think as engineers, we want to bridge that gap of doing both, but being creative, being, you know, experimental or brave in these sense, and just trusting in yourself and your ear and what feels good, you know, that can really bring you just as much notoriety as, you know, I mix the best, the prettiest sounding vocal ever, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think always in my life in general, I just never wanted to be like everyone else. You know, we're always going to be inspired by each other. Like, even everyone in this room, I'm pretty much like pretty sure we're all inspired by each other, but we're still our own individual people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I may have stuff that I do to this day that I'm inspired by both of y'all, but I'm just like, okay, how can I make it me? You know, how can I stand out? And you can learn sauce, you can learn tricks, but I'm just like, okay, what makes Scotty? You know, like, I've always tried to figure that out and aim to figure that out in my career and in my life. And you truly stand out when you try to be different, opposed to like just being like everyone else.
Yeah, it's great advice. I agree 100%.
I appreciate it.
So it seems like, you know, with your skill set and everything, it seems like every session you've been in, you're able to kind of gauge the artist and catch their vibe and pretty much have a smooth session. So how, on the other side, how do you work a session that isn't, you know, that smooth?
Man, I try to be a problem solver, like the best problem solver ever. So, like, I try to figure out the root of why isn't this session going as good? You know, even if it's not me, I just try to figure out, like, is it the entourage? Is it the lights? Are they hungry? Is it whatever? And I'm a big vibe person, so usually, even when sessions aren't going as smooth, I usually find the reason why it's not going smooth and just continue from there. And sometimes I do a hard reset, man. Sometimes I say, hey, man, Can everyone just step out for 5 minutes? Give me an artist like 5 minutes, and I'll be fearless. So even if the manager's in there, I just say, hey man, can you step out? Just let me and the artist talk for 5 minutes, and I just be real, like, hey, what's going on? What's up? And depending on who the artist is, in most scenarios, they just open up and be like, yeah, man, I'm just not feeling this beat or whatever. And I'm just like, cool. I'll go get the producer. We'll find a new beat and then just go from there. And sometimes they're hungry. Sometimes they have personal stuff going on. And sometimes, especially with sessions where we're in the studio for a long time, sometimes I'm like, let's just take a 30-minute lunch break. Let's just vibe. Let's eat some food. Let's revisit. Do you need some water? Do you need some coffee? I try to always find a solution to make the session go good, because whether we're in a session for 4 hours or 8 hours or 12 hours or 16 or 18, it's like I try to cherish every single moment, man. And because you never know what an opportunity may lead you. So I try to take advantage of every opportunity I'm given and just capitalize on every opportunity I'm given so I can further my career.
That's good, man. That's pretty hard to tell people to leave the room, you know.
Bro, not for me.
Yeah. Get out of here.
I grew up in a Christian military household, so it was very straightforward, very to the point. Yeah. You know, my dad was he was a very respectful man, still is, but he was straight to the point, and he was bold. And he was, he was full of courage and just full of, he was a man's man. You know what I'm saying? And I carry that. Like I just be like, it does take a lot at times, because like it can get tense, but I'm just like, I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, we got another 8 hours. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
but it's always easier to do a session you're enjoying than one that's, that's not going too well. So making it a priority that everybody's vibing and feeling good will definitely make the time go by faster, more enjoyable.
For sure.
Because I feel like a lot of people wouldn't know how to navigate a session that's not going well.
Yeah. I try to they just go down with the ship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I've had those sessions, and honestly, that's what helped me too. Like we're just sinking. You know what I'm saying? Like we're in a session just sinking, and I'm just like, wow, this sucks. So with me, I'm just like, what can I do? Like I said, even if it's not me, I'm just like, what is the problem? And most of the times, I do figure out the problem.
Like, it's almost like extreme accountability.
Yes, for sure.
Even if you're not the cause of it, what am I doing wrong to not be able to fix this, or not figuring out what the problem is? So let me take it upon myself to do that.
Yeah, because it's embarrassing when the A&R, the manager, comes back in and they're like, "Hey, let me hear what y'all did," and we're on the hook 6 hours later because they can't vibe. And I'm just like, and they're like, "Oh, that's all you did?" And I'm like, "Yeah." You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, "Oh, this sucks," and that's a terrible feeling.
Yeah. Even when it has everything to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. It just still hurts because I love being productive. You know what I'm saying? Like I love getting records done. I love working.
Yeah. Just working the room.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. So this is your social right here for everybody who's on, and want to give my man a follow.
Yes, sir.
Scott_Taylor Jr. We're coming up on our time here. We're about an hour in. Before we go, if we want to get any last questions in, right now would be the time. But man, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your time, Scotty. But before we go, my man right here, Marty, he needs to know.
He said, I can't really did. I missed it. Okay,
yes,
I'll repeat it.
100% you missed it, Marty.
Yeah, you missed it, but I'll repeat it. So basically it's Neve 1073, the vintage one. CL1B, Telefunken 251. The in the box chain, what do I have? So I think it's literally just a Pro Tools EQ rolling off 80 hertz, a R compressor, basic settings, I think 3-to-1 ratio compression, hitting about 3 to 6 dB, and then I think after that as an RVox hitting 1 dB just to give it some lift. Simple. That's it. Reverb and delay. And the reason for that is because it's just so much work coming from the 1073 and the CL1B. I don't have to do much.
before we go, I have one more question because I feel like I have a hard time myself with like getting good sounding reverbs for like R&B vocals, like how you and Money record and stuff. What's your go-to verb?
You know what's crazy? My go-to verb is 2 verbs. One is our verb, like literally classic. I like to call it the Atlanta sound, man. Like in Atlanta, if you pull up a session, you're probably gonna see some R verb on there. It's just a classic verb. I try to time the verbs as well. And my second one that I used recently on our last album was the manly verb. It's like a purple one. It's and it's the stock preset. Literally just the stock preset. Like I think literally I clicked it one time. Another engineer, it's an engineer out of New York named Alexis. She put me onto it. Like she was telling me about it. And then I was like, oh, that's dope. And then I went to go try it out. I clicked it. I left it on. I like how it sounds, and I've never changed it. He said it sounds very Kook-like. Kook is my guy too. Yeah, that's
so cool. Like, were you ever like working under him and like shadowing him or anything like that?
No. So what happened was when we was in LA, we worked a lot together. Because we at first we was recording out of his studio. So he would like come by and just like vibe. Sometimes he would come by and work with their vocal producer as well and recorder. And then we just talked a lot. And then, but usually when they work there together, and then usually when we work, we're together. So yeah, that's we work together very few times, like in the same room. But we usually like just send stuff to each other and just talk about techniques and stuff like that because we both do so much good work. It's just like more so like thanks, and then we just kind of go about our day. And but the little times I have like been in the room with him, amazing, and I see why he is successful as he is today because that dude is great. He's great.
Yeah,
man.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, Scotty. Appreciate you again, man. Thank you for coming on, giving us your time, asking all these questions and everything, giving us your story. We really appreciate it coming on the Academy.
Likewise, I appreciate y'all, bro. And let's do it again.
Yes, sir. And if we don't have any more questions, I think that's it.
Yeah. We are going to have some new stuff rolling out with the Academy as well. So for anybody that's engineers in here that are looking to, if you're not just a Scotty fan club and you're trying to mix and things like that or record, we're going to be having a lot of good stuff coming out here in the near future. So you guys, stay tuned for it.
We've been a little quiet, I know that, but we've been working behind the scenes. Kevin and I and the Academy, we just got back from our trip and we got some, cooking up for you guys. So stay tuned.
Man, for sure, man. And I appreciate y'all for making this platform for us engineers. Like it's so beautiful to see us come together, even if it's just for an hour to just discuss all of our greatness that we're so blessed to have. It's beautiful. And I don't take this for granted at all. So anytime y'all need me for something, even if it's in person, like, what I'm saying, you want to do a workshop or whatever, and I one call away. And I still got to come. I got to come down there, Pearl.
Anytime, bro. You're always welcome. Always welcome. Yeah. We'll have some food, man. I'll show you around.
We're in the same city. So, definitely got to pull up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, boys. Well, it's good talking to you guys. And
man,
peace.
My guys, peace. Blessings.